You can be the most intelligent rabbit in the world, yet still be unaware that you are a rabbit. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a profound truth about intelligence and awareness. I'm going to explore the difference between self-awareness and awareness of the self. Most people believe they are observing their thoughts. But what's really happening is much more subtle. They are the thinker watching the thought, not the awareness watching the thinker. Understanding this distinction is critical. Let's start with the basics. Most humans have a high level of self-awareness. It's what separates us from other species. In this video, I'm going to explain both concepts, compare and contrast, and share how you can shift into awareness of the self. Before we dive deeper, let me be clear. Words are simply tools. I use terms like self-awareness and awareness of the self loosely to communicate these ideas. Don't get too hung up on the terminology. Question everything, but do it with curiosity, not fear. Let's go back to the rabbit. Scientists use a self-reflection test to study animals. They show the animal its reflection and observe how it reacts. Very few animals pass this test. Most don't recognize the reflection as themselves. What scientists are looking for is evidence of self-recognition, the ability to connect the reflection to one's identity. Humans, on the other hand, pass this test almost effortlessly most of the time. When you look into a mirror, you immediately identify the face looking back as me. You see your features, your clothes, your body, and you attach a story to it. That reflection isn't just an image. It represents everything you believe you are. But here's the key. When you look into the mirror, you're not seeing your true self. You are seeing a rigid identity shaped by thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Most animals can't form this connection, but for humans, it can become a trap. This ability to reflect on ourselves is closely tied to the brain's architecture, particularly the default mode network, the DMN, and the insula. The DMN creates self-referential thoughts like, I am this, or I feel that, building the story of who you think you are. Meanwhile, the insula connects bodily sensations to this narrative, turning a racing heart into something like, I feel anxious. These processes reinforce identification with the mind rather than true awareness. We will dive deeper into how the DMN and insula shape your sense of self in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. What we are addressing here is about recognizing the mind's activity while resting in the awareness beyond it, free from identification. This is where awareness of the self comes in. Most people think they are observing their thoughts, but they're actually just layering one thought on top of another. If you think, I'm not good enough, and then a second thought arises saying, I see myself thinking this. That's where the aforementioned subtle mind identification is still at play. And that's okay. Awareness of the self requires stepping back even further. Even just hearing me speak about it now is a huge step forward into understanding this concept so you can experience it for yourself. Instead of focusing on the thought or the thinker, Shift your attention to the space in which both arise. This isn't about analyzing or labeling. It's about experiencing the stillness that allows the thoughts to appear. You are not the thinker watching the thought. You are the awareness watching the thinker. Each stage along your journey will always start as a concept. Useful framing allows us to penetrate the concept with direct experience. And then with some further practice, we can begin to understand this thing more. The more we practice it, the more we embody it. The real question isn't, what am I thinking? Instead, try this. Am I conscious of the awareness, observing all? This distinction is subtle but profound. It's what allows you to see the entire process without judgment or attachment. It will take some practice. Best way to practice this is through your meditation. I appreciate that this can sound a little bit confusing. You may be asking, why does this shift actually matter? Well, when we operate from self-awareness, you're still tied to the mind. We can do amazing things. It's where most people will stay for their entire life. But the mind can overthink, doubt itself, distort reality incredibly. It can create attachment to outcomes, many other things I could list, but the outcome from most of them is unnecessary suffering. Awareness of the self interrupts this interference. It allows the brain's natural intelligence to function without distortion. So your creativity, problem solving, and adaptivity can flow seamlessly when they're not hijacked by the sense of self. So let's make this practical. The next time you're caught in a thought, whether it's overthinking, self-doubt, or attachment to a specific outcome, when you notice that you've maybe got stuck in some neurosis, overthinking, or you're feeling reactive, first just give yourself a little celebration to the fact that you've got the awareness to now realize this thing. And then with that awareness, don't use it to analyze the thought. Instead, remind yourself of what we're speaking of here. And just create some space without expectation. And just allow your attention to sit as the awareness behind the thought. This will take lots of practice, but I promise you it's worth it. Do not force this thing. Celebrate your ability. Celebrate your realizations, however small they are. And bask in the space that you can now create. And as I've said, these things cannot just be intellectualized. They have to be experienced. That's why practices like meditation are essential. They train you to rest in awareness, to see your thoughts and emotions. I'm also going to do another video on how meditation can literally change the anatomy of your brain. Let's go back to the rabbit one more time. The rabbit likely doesn't know that it's a rabbit. It's likely completely hardwired to act on its instincts. Whereas humans, we develop a sense of self, and we perhaps have a higher level of intelligence, but with that comes its own set of traps through identification with thoughts, roles, and emotions. So remember, the real question isn't how intelligent am I, or what's my story. Strictly speaking, here it is, am I conscious of the awareness, observing all? That's the shift from self-awareness to awareness of the self. And as you begin to develop this thing and give it more practice and more attention, you will start to see that that is where your real freedom in this life can begin. And you deserve it. I will see you in the next video.